Hello everyone. If you have not watched my previous videos about Prophet Muhammad and what the Quran tells us about the situation of his death, I highly encourage you to watch those videos before watching the rest of this video. I will put the links. I have several videos on that topic. I will put the links down in the description, and you're going to see from the Quran that actually Prophet Muhammad was poisoned to death. This is what the Quran tells us. This is not based on hadith or hearsay or he said, she said. That's what the Quran tells us very clearly, that Prophet Muhammad would be murdered. And obviously, because we have no evidence of him being murdered by in a war or anything like that, we can easily reach the conclusion that he was poisoned to death. Then we go to the first rightly guided caliph, whose name was Abu Bakr. Now, Abu Bakr was also poisoned to death and did not die of natural causes. If you look at them, they all die very young, and he dies literally a few years right after Prophet Muhammad. They poison him to death as well. Then you have the second rightly guided caliph, whose name is Omar. Omar was actually murdered. He was killed by a sword. Then you have the third rightly guided caliph, Uthman, who was also killed by sword. And then after that you have Ali, who was the fourth rightly guided caliph. He was murdered by a poisoned sword. So he was both poisoned and killed by the sword as well. Right after that you have his son Hassan, who was the fifth rightly guided caliph, who was chosen by the people, by the believer of his own time, and he was poisoned to death by Muawiyah. So he actually was poisoned to death by Muawiyah at a very young age. Now later on, a few years later, you have Hussein ibn Ali, who was Hassan's brother. He and his entire family were also massacred by Muawiyah's son, whose name was Yazid. Now the question is, the reason why I want you to see this, I want you to see how treacherous these people were. These people that at this time that was supposed to be the golden time of this religion and these believers, this was the environment that one after another, Prophet Muhammad is poisoned to death, Abu Bakr is poisoned to death, Umar is killed, Uthman is killed, Ali is killed, Hassan is poisoned to death. And then, so this is the environment they are talking, it's the most treacherous environment you can imagine. Now, if you think some of the people of that time were true believers and they were so godly and all about righteousness, that you really have not understood anything of history and of what happened during that day and age. And most importantly, you have not understood what the Quran says, that God, our Creator, Yahweh, says that He is going to test the believers after the Prophet to separate the good from the wicked believers. It's talking about the believers, that separate the good believers from the wicked believers. And obviously there were a lot of wicked believers back then. You can see that. And obviously that came around. I have a video on that topic. Again, I will put the link down in the description, because it's so important that you understand that this was a very, very treacherous, satanic environment after the Prophet. Very poisonous, very hostile environment. But the question is, why did this happen? Now, if you look at the map, you will understand when Prophet and the other believers, they were in Medina, they were really isolated. They were at this place that nobody was controlling it. The Persians were not interested. The Romans were not interested. Nobody was interested in this area. It was a desert. There were like a few small towns and villages here. It was simply a no man's land. It was nothing, and nobody really cared about a community here. However, as soon as Prophet Muhammad captures the true Mecca here, and I'm talking about Petra, Jordan, what is known today as Petra, Jordan, the original Mecca, the real Mecca. I'm not talking about that fake Mecca that later on the Umayyad created 70 years after Prophet Muhammad during the time of Abdul Malik ibn Marwan. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the actual original true Mecca. So it's, as you can see, it's right here. It's very close to Damascus. It's everyone is this is a very central, in fact I can tell you the most central location. So because of that, this was at everybody's attention. So as long as they were here, they were okay. But as soon as Prophet Muhammad conquers Mecca, the equation changes. Now he's dealing with these forces from all around the world. Romans, Persians, all and everybody, especially the Romans who were controlling this region. They were very interested. You're close to Jerusalem and all those things. This is when it becomes really treacherous, and this is when they came actually to the attention. Now they had the power. They were conquering countries. Now, at this point, you have on your right hand, you have the faith, you have the righteousness, you have Yahweh, you have God, your creator. And on your left hand, you have this world. You have the power, you have the wealth. So this was the test. Now, as soon as they were tested by this choice, that they had to make a choice between the power and the wealth and the true religion and their faith, guess what? Majority of those people who were the followers of Prophet Muhammad, who were supposed to be true believers, they ended up opting for the wealth and the power. And the religion really went out of the door at this point. And that's what you see, that they're constantly killing caliph after caliph, poisoning them, and all those bad things happening. Peace and blessings to the true believers.